So this here is the manufacturing sector, and we're just looking at at the moment is to what extent do you believe that it's possible for UK manufacturers to compete in a global economy? Well, I would have to say that of course it's possible for UK manufacturers to compete in a global economy because we've got examples of firms that are doing quite well already. Now, when you read the little case study that is given, which we've read about steel, and it talks about Tata, and Tata owns steel, the British Steel, the steel company in the UK, and they're trying to get rid of that particular company. And that particular company now is producing much less than it was 10 years ago. Just for an example, the UK produces 9.5 million tonnes of steel a year, whereas China produces 683 million tonnes. That gives you sort of an example of the rapid industrial pace and growth of China. However, so just because in the case study it says that they've had to become smaller doesn't mean that the UK cannot compete on a global level. However, it does depend on a number of different things. Okay, so we're going to look at those. So I'm going to say, right, the evidence is Tata, JLR, they're doing really well. They've just invested £800 million into Wolverhampton. The analysis is that they produce a great product. There's a high income elasticity demand in China for that particular product. So that's the reason why it's doing pretty well. AstraZeneca doing well. They're pharmaceuticals, they're high tech, they're high value added industries, the sort of industry that the UK is good at. And JCB is doing well. It's now exporting to China and India. And the reason why it's exporting to those countries is because they're having lots of infrastructure and they need their particular product that they sell. And also, according to the Boston Consulting Group, the UK on a global level is holding steady. Right, it's not a rising global star. A rising global star happens to be the USA and Mexico. Now, sorry, I've already sort of drawn all over this because it's the second time I've done this because I forgot to turn on my new microphone. How does that sound? Does that sound pretty good? Yeah, okay. Which I can now hold down there. Anyway, of course, but you must turn it on. Right. And in America, the reason why America and Mexico are the rising global stars is because they found shale gas. And so their energy costs have gone down by 25 to 35%. However, America also does pretty well in terms of productivity. It also, its exchange rate has also fallen and its wages are not too high. They've got a very flexible labour market. So if you look at the reasons why America can do well, it's for all of those things on there. Now, just because our energy costs are quite high in the UK, right, that does not mean that we cannot compete because we may become more efficient in terms of how we use energy. But the other big thing about the UK, which all of my students know, is that we also have loads of shale gas, 200 trillion cubic feet of gas below the surface. We would tend to use about 3 trillion cubic feet of gas a year. So by my calculations, which I'm now working out, we've got 70 years of energy there, which is going to be cheaper than our current levels of energy. So the number one concern for the UK manufacturers is in terms of energy costs. But if we did have shale gas and was successful like in America, then those energy costs would also fall, which would give us a major advantage in terms of the world economy. However, we can also perhaps have more energy efficiency, we can have good productivity, we can have a lower exchange rate, and our wages are reasonably good. We also have a flexible labour market. On top of this, the UK government has done a lot to try and push the basis of business. Right, so therefore hopefully the UK can produce innovative products with high quality, therefore we can charge high prices, we can produce high value added goods. Now, if the government can do this through the things called the catapult centres, then if they do this, and we also have low interest rates, and we also have a low exchange rate, and we also have low corporation tax, which is what we do have in the UK. Our corporation tax is 20%. Our exchange rate has been low since 2008, although recently it's gone up a bit. We've also got low interest rates, so therefore businesses should be able to borrow money more cheaply. Now, if you combine, examiners love that, if you combine all of these factors together, then we may fulfill George Osborne's plan for growth. And his plan for growth is all about getting investment and exports increasing, because we want to have export-led growth, which also teach economics. Export-led growth is the key to the British economy. Okay, so I've given you two nice paragraphs here about why the UK may well be able to compete on the global economy. However, there is a reason we always want to put the other side of the argument. If we do not have high productivity, if we have rising energy costs, then we're going to find it much, much harder to compete for the global economy. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get to the Boston Consulting Report, and basically they say that the UK is a rising regional star. Now, the reason why it's a rising regional star is because it's got great labour market flexibility, and it's also got a really good infrastructure. It's got really good institutions. It's got good stable government. It's got good schools. It's got good roads and rail. So there's a lot of things going for it. So really, if the UK can also take advantage of the megatrends that were outlined by KPMG, and if we can use 3D printing, if we can use nanotechnology, if we can find the right sort of talent to mine these factories, if we can take advantage of the BRIC countries, then we should be able to export more to those countries. And in a sense, we've already shown that, because Tata GLR have done really well, JCB's exporting to the BRIC countries, AstraZeneca. So we have got examples of where these firms have done well. And of course, also according to the Fraser Institute, then the UK also has a very flexible labour market. So if we can continue in this fashion, then perhaps we can take advantage of it. However, right, we've got to come up with a big conclusion. And I would argue that the world is, in fact, a very, very competitive place. China still has cheap labour. It's got thousands upon thousands, probably millions upon millions of engineers. It's sorting out its educational system. It's building its own higher value added industries. And it's also got what's now called the Silk Corridor, which is the whole Asian market is a huge market. Previously, Europe was the biggest market in the world, which it still is just, followed by America, then followed by China. But now the Asian market, probably in a few years' time, will take over the European market as in terms of value, the biggest market in the world today. On top of that, we have other forms of competition from Brazil, which has got a lot of resources. We've got Africa, which has also got a lot of resources, and if it can get some political stability going in that particular continent, then they may also take off. So the UK is going to find it incredibly difficult to do it. However, the UK right now is doing pretty well. We've actually got 3% growth. In fact, it's 2.6% growth, but we have growth, unlike the rest of Europe. But one of the problems in terms of the UK right now is also that Europe as a whole is not doing particularly well. Okay, however though, at the end of the day, if we can sort out some of these problems that we have of our productivity could really, really improve, but maybe this will improve because of supply side reform, which is making it easier for factories to become more efficient, like having low corporation tax. If we can increase it to the enterprise, over 500,000 new businesses started last year. And if we can somehow reduce our energy costs, which is the real big one, then yes, the UK can compete on a global level. And it sort of appears to me that maybe the UK is certainly a rising regional star, but we could become a global rising star if we could get fracking, just like the Americans, and if we can increase productivity, and if we can introduce some of this supply side reform, then it's possible that the UK could compete on the global level. Okay, so on this essay, it's a bit, yes, we can if we do various things. However, it's clearly going to be very, very difficult with a country like China and competing with the Asian continent and even South Korea with their great big firms and their great big brands. Okay, thank you.